Good morning and welcome to the launch of our Writer in Residence programme. My name is Kirstie and I work for Kirklees Libraries. When Chris and I met at the end of last year to discuss what a Kirklees Libraries Writer in Residence programme would look like, an online series of videos filmed live in our homes on the best tech that we had to hand was unsurprisingly not something that featured on our list at all. However, we were keen to get started. And seeing at the success of our Children's Reader Development Programme, our online Children's Reader Development Programme, Library Adventures Live, if you've missed them, you can still catch them on Catch Up on Facebook or YouTube. We decided to rethink, redesign, and just go for it and launch online, which brings us to today. Kirklees Libraries have been supporting local writers for many years, most recently in setting up, in partnership with Chris, Kirklees Author Forum Exchange. We provide space for writers to meet up and encourage each other, as well as a series of events and workshops tied around writing and a writer's journey, as well as a tie-in to a British Library National exhibition programme as well. But we wanted to do more to highlight the writers of Kirklees and to support our local community of all ages, very important, of all ages, to take up writing their own stories, whether it's fiction, non-fiction, poetry, screenplays, lyrics, video games, manga, graphic novels, children's books, memoirs, or even plays. Whatever their writing passion might be, we want them to start that journey. Creating a writer in residence, whose role would be to lead on these aims with us, while promoting the role of libraries and reading it gets a key role in a writer's journey, felt like an intriguing and exciting adventure. And Chris, with her long-held and much-shared support of public libraries, as well as being a published author and a willingness to support other writers, made her an obvious, joyful choice for us. As we go along, Chris will share with you information about her own writing journey, but you can see more now if you check out her website, well, not now, but later on her own website, funnylass.com/author/Chris. And you can see more about the books that she's written. If you want to see more about her most recent books, a fascinating tale from her own ancestors, you can see those on this site, Robert Rashid Stanley. Thoroughly recommend going to check out the website. It's an extraordinary story. And Chris will be doing a talk about this herself in November for us. Her books are also available on Libby, our free ebook service. So please do check them out. I strongly recommend you go and have a look at them. So, no more ado, let's launch this programme. It's my complete pleasure, let me just unmute her mic as well. My complete pleasure to introduce you to the Kirklees Libraries Writer in Residence, Christina Longden. Just bring her in, there we go. Hi Chris, how are you?
Hi, thank you. What a nice introduction.
Well, absolutely.
Lovely, really nice, thank you. And it's just so good to be here and to, as you say, hopefully helping other people today. Yeah, I'm not going to talk forever, but I will hopefully try and extract a bit of some stories, some information from people today. So what I'm going to do is talk away for a few minutes, and hopefully I'm going to be able to tell you what our plans are for the future, and maybe that will help you decide what your plans are for the future, if you have any writing plans, if you want to embark on them. So we're going to be looking at, in the future, we'll be looking at sessions, we'll talk about that at the end, but fiction versus non-fiction writing, developing a story, character development, the actual process of writing, and the publishing process at some point in the year. And I will also be chatting to other authors, which I'm really, really excited about, because you always get something out of listening to different authors. We're all so very different. We're not just one species. So today I'm going to be chatting really about, have you got an idea for a book? It's called A Book in You. And have you got the inclination to maybe develop that into something substantial and real that other people can read and you can share? So what I'll be doing, I'll chat first of all about, I guess, the beginning of my writing story and what got me into writing. And then I'll set you some little thinking exercises and I'll run through them whilst we're here, but I don't expect you to do them here, because otherwise there'll be great big periods of silence, which we don't want. So if you want to grab a pen or a pencil, and if you haven't got one and you can't do, Kirstie's going to be putting the slides up so you can watch them again afterwards and have a little go in your own time about your thinking processes behind writing, really. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the obstacles. So you're here, some of you will want to write a book, or you've been told you maybe should write a book, but you haven't yet. So we'll have a little look at what your obstacles might be, and it will just be things like, have I got the time? That's a big one. For most writers, it's actually finding the time to develop your idea and to actually put pen to paper or tap away at your keyboard. Have I got the space? Again, a big issue for some people. And an equally big issue is, have I got the confidence to actually put it all down there and to get it out there? And how do I do that? Another reason that you might not have written a book or something like a book yet is you might not even know any writers. So that was a big thing for me. I didn't know any writers. So hopefully we're going to help you with that, getting to know some writers as well online through all the writer in residency stuff. Some of you might have way too many ideas. I'm a bit like that. I've got zillions flying around my head all the time. So hopefully over the next few sessions as well, be able to help pull out the ones that might work best for you to start with. A lot of you will be waiting for the right moment to do it. Now might not be the right moment, but we'll have a look at that as well. And some of you might feel that you do not have enough education, that your writing isn't good enough, your grammar, your spelling, that kind of thing, and that can really hold people back. So I'm hoping that we'll encourage people to move away from that one. And some of you might already have written a book, and some of you might already be partway through it or dashed out lots of them, and you might be going through that post-publication slump, which I think most writers feel. There's like an initial elation, and then there's a what now? Like you've given birth and it's all a bit weird. So hopefully we'll chat about those later on. And if you've got any questions about anything I'm saying, please just send them in. Send them in now or for next time. So just stay here now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own background, which is, I guess, it's never a traditional writing background for anyone, but I'm from a background in an area where, as I say, I didn't know any writers, and writing was never ever seen to be a career choice, for many reasons. But I loved reading, and I'm very grateful to my mum in particular, because she's still, like me, an avid bookworm. So I never had any problems with living in a library. And this is back in the days when, you know, everybody used to send the kids off to the libraries for 6 weeks summer holidays and not see them, and great cheap babysitting. And I just loved my libraries. I loved my reading. I loved my writing. And I was always the kid at school in the class who enjoyed creative writing. But that felt very much like a hobby for me, not something serious, not something sensible, certainly nothing you'd ever make money from or break even from. So I did write, and I wrote at school, and I did well at school in my writing, but it was something I would never have considered to show people. So I began to write in my spare time, and I never showed anybody other than obviously the teacher at school, where you have to try and get some marks. And I actually, please don't laugh at this, but I actually hid it under my mattress. And I don't know if Mother is watching. She's probably read all the things I wrote, but I was that embarrassed about it, and it really felt like such a personal thing and such a crazy lofty ambition that I could never even put into words I wanted to do this. So I hid it away, and I read it, and it was the most wonderful secretive thing to be actually writing and enjoying the process of writing. So it wasn't until I was a lot older that I felt comfortable with reading anything that I would call creative. But I did actually end up going into a job where I used writing skills. So I went into social housing, and you know, it was very practical stuff. It was like writing eviction reports, writing reports for judges, and, you know, writing to tenants, and writing very, you know, dull sort of off the, you know, nothing from the heart. It was facts, but I was good at it. And then I ended up moving into writing for housing policy. I ended up doing stuff, writing even speeches that ministers read out in Parliament, and that was a real buzz to hear your words, even though it's, you know, quite dull stuff, being read out and somebody else appreciating really what your skills are. So that was the end of that, and I then ran off to Africa, like you do. And this, I mean, I've never told this story, but I went to live in Africa, and I went to live in the Kalahari, in a country called Namibia. And I was living there with the Bushmen, the Kalahari San Bushmen, and I began to have a little bit more confidence in my writing skills at the time. And I think that's probably because I was teaching other people to develop their writing skills. So it made me think, well, actually, maybe I am okay at this. And I started doing a little bit of creative writing. I suppose it was what you'd call travel writing. So I wrote some stuff about the experiences I was having there in the middle of the bush, and the very unusual and crazy and at times very upsetting experiences. And I still can't quite believe I did this, because we had no internet access. So I somehow thought I like the style that I'm developing here, and it is, and again, I didn't show it to anyone, but it reminded me of Bill Bryson. Whoa, we are not worthy, Bill Bryson. And I didn't stalk Bill Bryson, but I managed to find an address to write. So physically, sending this to Bill Bryson back in the UK, where he was then living, and he wrote back to me. And I mean, I will never, ever be able to explain how thrilling that was, to get a letter from Bill Bryson sent to the Kalahari. I mean, he really cared. He really bothered. And I mean, he might have done that, a pile of rubbish, what I'd written. But he took the time to write to me, and he was so encouraging about the style. And he gave me some advice. And that letter is my most treasured possession. So that really helps. And that, a word of advice today is, if you are a writer and if you have had anything published, I kind of think you've almost got an obligation to give back to other people and to encourage them in their writing, which is what, Bill Bryson, the god Bill Bryson, did for me. And then I was really, really lucky in that I was asked to write 2 books with the Bushmen. So I was asked to basically compile all the interviews, oral history collection with the Bushmen, and put them into a book of their words. And that was the most incredible feeling, and it was a real privilege, because it was like, these are people who were never ever allowed to tell their stories or their words, and I could amplify their voice, if you like. So it became a book, and it was great to see their reaction to the book. And so when I came back to live in the UK, I guess I'd had that experience of helping other people through the written word, getting their story out there. And I thought, well, I've got a zillion stories going around in my head, made up, imaginative, proper storytelling stories, but I'd never had the confidence or the time, or I guess the skills of doing that. So when I came back, I decided I'm going to write some stuff myself. It's going to be my stories, the ideas that I have. And I suppose, typically of my writing style is, it ended up being quite humorous, but also quite dark. So I wanted to be very northern, because I love, I'm sure you can tell with the accent, I must say as well, I go really broad when I'm nervous. So I'm probably more broader now than I am when you meet me in real life. But I put a lot of thought into the storyline, and it was social issues, but with humour. And so I wrote Mind Games and Ministers and Cuckoo in the Chocolate, and quite an unusual genre. I mean, most people tend not to even try and write humorous stuff, because it's tricky. But then, strangely, my writing took a completely different direction, because our family made a big discovery, which you can read about the website. My great-great-great-granddad, who was a very respectable Victorian man, was found out to have been one of the earliest recorded converts to Islam in the UK. And everybody that I know was just absolutely wowed by this, and kept saying, somebody needs to put this into a book. So after a few years, I thought, do you know what? Thanks to my lovely friends who encouraged me to do it, I did do that. So I wrote 2 books about him, which kind of has developed again over the last couple of years, and I just kind of completed them, really. So that's my story, and I'm sure every writer that you would ever speak to has a completely different story and different experiences. And so I don't have any advice in terms of what you could do with your life and with your story and your experiences, but I think that probably just goes to show you how crazy things can be for a writer. And you probably won't sit down at the age of 10 or 11, 12 and say, this is going to be my career progression, this is what I want to do with my life, and it will happen like this. It's been very organic for me. But I think what would help now, if everybody is willing to listen for a little bit longer, is if I just work with Kirstie. She's got some PowerPoint overheads to put up next to me as I'm talking. Just some things for people to think about, really. So Something I never did, so I'm a complete hypocrite. I never sat and thought about the writing process before I can. It just kind of spilled out of me. It was a very natural, fluid thing. But I think it might help you, especially if you're a bit stuck at the moment and you're a bit maybe scared or don't know where to go next, is to just sit and think. Get yourself a stopwatch for the first few questions and give yourself some time later on to sit and think about this writing process and maybe what you want to do with it. Try and not think too hard, just let it flow from you. And get your stopwatch. Give yourself 6 reasons. This is the first one. 1 minute. Give yourself 6 reasons as to why I want to carry on with writing that book or make that book happen. Don't think about it. Just crack on. 6 reasons, 60 seconds. So that's your first one. Your second one is to, again, 60 seconds. What is it that I actually want to write? What is it that I've got this secret desire with it? What is it that other people say I should maybe write? So is it something like a novel, short stories, a memoir, mine, somebody else's, poems, non-fiction? Are you into your facts? Do you want to tell people about aeroplanes or whatever bit of the world you're an expert on? Children's fiction, is that what rings your bell? Are you into self-help? Have you got a lot of experience and insight to help other people with? Might be something like Kirstie said previously. We all sort of think books, novels when we think writing, but film, TV, the thing that governs our lives so much. You've got to be a good writer. Might be some of you out there who are into gaming and you'll love the gaming stories. And there is, talking money, we won't talk about money too much, a lot of money to be made from having great gaming ideas and story development there. So the next one. How does writing make me feel? Just spend a minute. Don't think about it. How does it make me feel? Obviously, if you're writing, it makes me feel dreadful. Why would I ever do this? It might not be the best thing to do to go and develop a book, but just get out of you what it is, what feelings does the process of writing when you're doing it, whether it's in front of other people or in your quiet time on your own. How does it make me feel? Next one. What is it about? So I've got my idea of what I want to write and what it is and how it makes me feel. Now, just write 1, 2, or maybe 3 sentences on what this story or what this book is about. Not the blurb off the back of the jacket. You can do an entire workshop on the blurb that they want to market to you or get you to buy the book. Just in a nutshell, what is this about? So, for example, with my Robert Stanley books, I would be saying, okay, this book is about a working class Victorian man who shocked a town by converting to Islam and whose family kept it secret for 100 years. So you don't have to make it, jazzy or forget about the words, just what the story is, what the drive is behind it. If it's poems that you're good at writing, I'm very jealous for a start, but if you're into your poetry and you can do that, maybe just summarize what the themes tend to be of your poems. For example, my poems tend to address the theme of liberation or how annoying grown-ups are. What is it that is your niche, really? Okay, then put your stopwatch away for that bit. Now we're just going to do a little bit more thinking, chewing over more about the purpose. What is the purpose? Why am I writing? And I spent ages looking at what perhaps the purposes could be for me, what they could be for you. And I wrote a really good long list of reasons. And then I picked up a fantastic book by Margaret Atwood on the process of writing. And she'd done way better ones than I had. So go and read Margaret Atwood's book. But here's just some examples that you might want to nick and write down. The purpose of your writing, your book, whatever it is you want to produce, it might be to entertain. Fantastic. You just want people to laugh and to have a good time. It might be to educate them, to inform them, to instruct them, to inspire them, to encourage them. It might just be an act of self-expression. Just that's in there. I've got to get it out there. To share your experiences in life, things that have helped you. To provoke, to challenge people, to maybe think harder about something in the world. To campaign, to change things in the world or in other people's lives. To celebrate. To set the record straight. Again, that's very powerful for me, I suppose, with the book that I did about my ancestor. To shock. This isn't for me. People love to write just to shock other people. You might be one of them. To titillate. To impress others. To validate yourself. Just to give yourself a voice to say, actually, I am here and it is on paper now. To make money. For recognition, for other people to admire you. For art's sake. Just because a piece of art is absolutely worth it, is valid in itself. It might just be that. And it might be to show off that you've got great literary prowess, for example. So think of those, think of some more, add your own, and just notice if you have an adverse reaction to any of them. Just keep your eye on strong feelings that come out, particularly negative feelings. So, for example, if you're no way, I don't want to make money, or that might be the reason you're getting stuck. You've got an issue with something going on there. For example, for me, the one I would say, if I'm really honest, one of the reasons I didn't write and show people my writing for a long time was because for recognition held me back. And I suppose that's because I'm from a background or from an area where there's this thing of, well, don't get above yourself. Who do you think you are? Kind of thing. Oh, I don't want to be a show off. And that took me a long time. And I still, if I'm really honest, I still struggle with this. Are you doing this for recognition? And why would that be such a bad thing if you were? Anyway, so just challenge your thinking. And if you get stuck on this one about what's my purpose for writing this thing, maybe have a look at books that other people have written that you're familiar with, maybe something that you were forced to read at school or something you really love. It could be anything from Wuthering Heights to Adrian Mole or Train Spotting, something you've read, you're familiar with. Just think about what might have been the purpose of that author when they picked up the pen and started writing. What were they trying to do? There are some perhaps dodgy reasons for writing, but for example, maybe not so much dodgy, but things that you might want to think a little bit more at. So, for example, if you instantly think, I want to write because I want to make millions, I'd just encourage you to perhaps be a little bit more realistic and research how little authors earn. You just need to go and read online about how little authors earn. So, but you can make millions. There are people that make millions. You can become a bestseller. There are people that become bestsellers. But again, just think about your expectations here and to be realistic. To be famous, again, many people, I want to be a famous author. Nothing wrong in that at all. But bear in mind, most authors don't become famous. And there are probably a lot quicker ways of becoming famous, which we won't go into here. Reality TV, for example, if you want to be famous. Some people as well seem to have an illusion about what the writer's lifestyle is, this big romantic, wonderful lifestyle. So again, check yourself if that's the one that you're thinking of. And lastly, I would say this is not a particularly good reason to write, revenge. And I'm sure many of us are aware of just how powerful you can be as an author with a pen. But again, check yourself if you're there to have revenge against individuals, certain people. Probably easier if it's institutions and that kind of thing. And there are ways you can get around that. And it's a great way of sort of expunging any negative experiences you've had in your life. But that's just one to keep an eye on, I think. Revenge. A dish best eaten cold. So is it the right time for you? Back to the obstacles at the beginning. It might well be that you go, yeah, this is great. This sounds really good. I could have a go at that. But actually, now's a really bad time. That's fine. Let's face it, we're all living under completely unparalleled circumstances at the moment. It might work for you, but don't worry. Hopefully the fact that you've listened to me for a few minutes now can maybe help you move your way forward a little bit more. So you're just getting the brain thinking a little bit more about this. You're getting it out there. You're making it, it's real. I want to write. And just remember as well, no panic. A book has no shelf life. And every time I kind of have my own little mini panics about writing, I just remind myself, it's a great pun, but a book has no shelf life. It can be there forever and your story will not get worse, believe me. If you sit in it for a while, it will actually get better because you'll learn more about telling stories and getting information out there in the right way. So just play around with the ideas that you've got. If you've already had a bash at writing, because I know there will be many people that I've spoken to who have written way more books than I have, and maybe some of you are here today and just because you're interested, or maybe you're feeling a bit stuck. Again, it's that bit, like I said before, you've given birth to books or writing in different ways, and you're feeling a bit stuck and you want to move on a bit. It might be worth to have a little look now, as the final thing to think about is some rookie errors, whether you've been engaging in these what I call rookie errors, and I certainly did probably most of them when I began writing. And the first one I would say is rushing it. Again, you're so excited, you finally decided you're going to do this and the story's coming, so you can rush it. You're just desperate for people to read it. You're writing too much as well. You're not sort of playing around with the editing a bit more. You just want to get it out there, and then you realize it's gone out there and there's all these dreadful errors in it. Oh no, and people are pointing it out. And the other one as well, which I get quite a few people asking me about this, is paying for a service to help you get published. And many people kind of get preyed upon by the scammers, people that actually want you to pay them several £100s so they can publish your book. And there's a lot of advice out there on the internet, the Society of Authors, the Writers Guild, about not falling foul of that one. So again, slow down when you're getting excited about your writing. Slow down to try and plan and do a structure as well. Again, I'm a complete hypocrite because I never do this. Terrible. I had to with the Robert book, with the non-fiction. But when it's something more curated, it kind of flows out of me. But it still really helps to understand how to plan and to structure, and to know that there's a creative bit of the brain that you maybe shouldn't tamper with too much by the editing. Again, this is something that I often do. I'll read something, I think, oh, that's dreadful. So I'll start editing it. Then I've lost my mojo. I'm not working fast enough on it. Another one I would say, and again, this is a tricky one for some people, but it's really important to get somebody who isn't you to do the editing for you, with you, somebody who's great at that side of thing. And again, there's many a book that's been self-published that hasn't gone for having an external editor to help them. They can be fantastic, but some of them, the biggest issue is not having an editor to help you along. Perhaps as well having a bit of a too traditional an attitude to publishing. So, for example, in the old days, you trying to find a publisher and they publish it for you. Now things have changed completely, but you still might have that kind of traditional. Oh, it has to be traditionally published and it has to be done this way. But that can halt you. I mean, that can kind of really make you feel a bit meh. So, doing that and looking into that a little bit more, you can find lots of information on the internet, absolutely oodles. But one thing I would say is don't rely on internet advice too much, because there's some fantastic stuff out there. But again, there's nothing better than chatting to another writer or another group of writers and asking what their experience is. And this is where the local writers groups are just like gold dust as far as I'm concerned. A couple more rookie errors: boring everyone to death with it when you're trying to sell it, and it's all you can talk about, it's all you can think about, and you keep doing terrible marketing where you just keep basically saying things like buy my book. That can be, I think everybody falls foul of that in the beginning. And going it alone, as I said before, it's very important to find a group of friends. Yes, there might be virtual friends online you've never met, but it's such an isolated process. And that's for a good reason, but also I think it helps to reach out and get other people's support and advice. And that comes to supportive people. Don't share it with unsupportive people. And you might feel, for example, with my own family, who are absolutely fantastic, and I couldn't want for more supportive people. But I think it would be really unfair for me to bung my writing under their nose. People who might not like books, who might not like reading, who have completely different taste in books, to suddenly praise me for something I've written, or to say, oh, clever girl, kind of thing. And so you need to find somebody who is supportive for your writing, for you as a writer and your development. And we can come on to that in a minute with Kirstie. So anyway, at the end of all of that, if you still want to write, if you've still got some story you want to get out there, if you've still got some information that you want to get out there, you need to think, first of all, who will my support be? Because you can do it on your own, absolutely. People have done it on their own. But think about, is it my family? Is it my friends? Is it my colleagues? And that brings us on to, nicely, the writers' groups, because we are so lucky in this part of the country. And if any of you are sitting around the rest of the country or the rest of the world, you will definitely have some writers' groups with you. Now, I never ever wanted, I'm not a groupie person. People call me a bit of a lone wolf, really. But I have to say, if it wasn't for Holmfirth Writers Group here in Holmfirth, Holmfirth Valley, Home Valley, and Huddersfield Authors Circle, and Kirklees Author Forum Exchange, which we now have, I would not be where I am now, because particularly with Holmfirth Writers Group, I went along, lurked in the bookcases at Holmfirth Library, and they all looked quite friendly and not as scary as I thought they'd be. So I sat down and joined them one day, and then after a few weeks, I shared some of my work, and people were just so encouraging. It was just the best feeling in the world to have hidden my stuff for so long, and then to find these amazing people who were just fantastic writers and were going, hey, you're all right at that. And it just gave me the shot in the arm that I needed. So I would say that's my big piece of advice is try not to go it alone too much. Try and find supportive people. If one group doesn't work, another one might. Huddersfield Authors Circle, for example, they're doing online readings all this week. So if you want to find out how a group works, you can go along and look at Huddersfield Authors Circle and see what they're up to, what kind of people they are. Holmfirth Writers Group working with Holmfirth Arts Festival at the moment, so they've got a call in. So those of you that might have listened today and think, I'm going to have a go at something, there's an open submissions now, which will get put on display at Holmfirth Arts Festival. So there's something for everyone. All the groups are different. So I suppose I should summarise really. You don't have to write a book after listening to me today. You don't have to write a book ever. You don't have to write a book just because you've got a great idea. I would say there's many ways of sharing a story and of telling a story. So we talked about film and TV and just storytelling. Or there's many ways in getting your information out there. You might not choose to do it in a book format, in a different format. And I hope I've helped, that maybe as you go away and sit and look at some of the questions I've put to you, to think about, is this for me? Do I want to do a bit more of this in my life? If now isn't the time, fine, you might come back to it at another point. So the next session, which Kirstie will put information up on the internet about, is I'm going to be looking at factual writing versus fiction, and maybe even playing around with both of them, because it's two very different parts of the brain. And I think a lot of us, the word writer, you immediately think, oh, a novel, a book. And you might not realise you've probably got a very similar skill set for the non-fiction side of things. And you could even perhaps do, and we'll talk about this next time, something such as what I did with my latest book, whereas I blended all the historical facts into a fictitious story to fill the gaps of the bits that we didn't know about, to play around with what actually happened. And then after that, in November, we are hopefully, if Kirstie agrees, going to be looking at a little bit more at actually developing your story or your book or whatever you want to call it, and the planning, developing characters, that kind of thing. But I shall shut up now and see if anybody else wants to contribute.
That's fantastic. We might be getting a bit of a reverb, Chris, off your microphone, hon. We might need to put your headphones in, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think it's when I speak, we can hear it coming back out your anyway. So we've got some questions, phenomenally, and I've got some questions as well that pop into my head as we were talking. Thank you for that. And I would just say this was an introductory session today, and we'll get more kind of themed as we're going along. So keep an eye out for the themes, and you can email us some questions in advance before the sessions if you want to each time. You can just email us at read@kirklees.gov.uk. Nice and easy, that one. So if you've got some thoughts or some questions that you want to have Chris to talk about at the next session, then please do. Just use this email address. Okay, but we've had some comments come in today. So the lovely Carol Warham, hi Carol, has asked two questions. I think we'll go for this one first. I think we'll go for, do you have a best time for writing, Chris?
Yeah, it changed actually. Before and after children, as many people will find, it was kind of any time of the day before I had kids. And when we're very small, like baby small, it was, I actually found I could write in the evenings. Now I can't do anything in the evenings. I'm just so it's the mornings for me, always the mornings. The earlier the better. But again, you know, I feel like if I miss my opportunity in the day, I can sometimes do a little bit later on in the afternoon. But I'm a morning person, I'm afraid.
Morning person. Cool. And Carol asked us an extra question earlier on as well. There's another one here. In your novels, what comes first for you, location or characters?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Characters, yeah.
Characters.
So they are very strongly tied to a location. For example, with Mind Games, that one, again, I've got no patience for the traditional publishing thing. I'm sure that'll come out as we talk. But for that one, I submitted it and it was accepted. And I was told to rewrite it so it wasn't set up north. And that it wasn't, I know, and it wasn't as northern. And it was a great story. And it even actually went out to a panel of readers to you know, gave it fantastic feedback. But the publishers basically said it has to be de-northernified, which I could have done, but I wasn't willing to. So maybe that's just me being stubborn, but I just felt, this story is a story of northernness and northern prejudice as well, and it would have made it. It just would have felt wrong to me. So yeah, to me, character is very much steeped in your location, your roots, or your lack of roots.
Is that fascinating? There's a whole session just on denorthernise your book, isn't there? Anywho, right, okay. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Oh, Carol agrees. Mornings are best for her too. Right, so Tim sent one in, and he's got a question for me. I'll put it up. Well done, Chris. Question for Kirstie. Any plans for resumption of KAFE? That's the Kirklees Author Forum Exchange, which got hit like everything else by lockdown. So yes, Tim, absolutely. One of the things I'm wanting to do with Chris as the writer in residence is to really look at how we can bring KAFE into this kind of field as well. But yes, as soon as we can get groups meeting back in libraries, we'll absolutely starting. But there's some of the events that we're going to be bringing some of the authors. We're hoping to get some publishers. The types of things we would have been bringing into libraries, we're hoping to bring online. And bring it to even bigger audience as well. So we will be carrying on. And I've still got Green to finish and to publish. We thought we might do an online publication. KAFE group submitted some work which we're going to publish as a little book, which was based around the topic theme of green, which is still on the books to do. So yes, Tim, it will be coming.
I think the good thing about this as well, something positive that's come out of it all, is for the writers that I'm really looking forward to chatting to, and then they'll be talking as well. They get a wider voice, really, because you can watch a game, and that people have got such incredible stories to share themselves. So this, you can watch at your own leisure as well as live. So I think it'll work really well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing when we run events in the libraries, we're very aware that if you're free at that moment in that day, at that time, then you can come and you can travel and you can get to watch the children and you can come out. But online, if you've got the technology and you've got the wherewithal at home to do so, we can reach more people, is what we're hoping for with the archived sessions as well. So brilliant. So one of the things that we've been really lucky with. I'll come into this in a minute. We've been really lucky over the holidays. We launched our children's reader development program, Library Adventures Live, which has been featuring a wonderful array of authors from across the country. And we've got plans where we're going to be featuring international guests coming over the next few months. So it's well worth looking at, especially if you're looking at your own writing journey, because whilst they're talking to children about writing and their own books, the things they're talking about are very similar. I've just noticed what Chris has been talking about as well. So one of the questions I had was about sharing your work, because the first session we had with Joseph, the wonderful Joseph Coilo, did a phenomenal first session. He gave children 5 writing tips about writing. And one of them was about sharing your work. So I just wondered about, how you were talking about being careful who you shared with, and what is it like that first moment when you actually take something you've written to somebody and say, I've written this. I just wondered about that moment, what that was like for you.
It's easier to do it with Bill Bryson because he's a long way away. Yeah, that actually is a serious point there. Don't ever expect an author to write back to you if you decide to send them. I mean, I'm sure there'll be authors that I've read so many of these. This is so, I'm really kind of uncharitable attitudes. But I think most of us, you're just so delighted that somebody is interested in your opinion or your thoughts on something. So you can, share them with complete strangers, authors. We're all very strange. Or you can, like I say, with a writers group. For me, that was a safer bet because, I didn't know them. I do now. And again, I'm quite confident doing public speaking and talking about work and sitting in meetings and stuff, but to actually show that little bit of you and to feel, because you've left it for so long, like I did, to reveal that bit of you to somebody else, it's a really vulnerable position to be in. And, and I have met people that have gone to writers groups and they've felt quite bruised. They got, really not helpful critical feedback. But I have to say, I've never experienced that myself. So I would never let that put you off, because I don't think most people that you ever reach out to show it to, and to also say to them, it will really freak me out if you say this kind of thing about what I've written. If you could just comment on this aspect of what I've written. It's your right as a person who's created work of art or whatever you want to call it, to ask for certain type of feedback rather than to make yourself completely naked and to hear stuff that you perhaps can't deal with at that moment in time. But also, not to expect everybody to say, wow, it's wonderful, you're the best thing ever. But yeah, I mean, I would just say, choose wisely and choose what you're going to say if you choose to share your work with somebody, and also just be respectful and mindful of the fact that they might not be able to look at it for a long time. And I've definitely been guilty of that myself. I've expected people to look at stuff a lot sooner than they could, and I've learned not to do that now. But yeah, it's scary, but if you don't do it, you'll never ever develop. And it's that simple, and it's a great way of testing the waters with fellow writers. But you also might be lucky, and it's something that Kirstie and I have been looking at developing in Kirklees, is finding a beta reader. So people that love books, that love stories, that probably may well not want to ever write themselves, but would love to help you as a writer to develop yourself. And I feel quite privileged that you shared a first draft of your book or your story with them. So again, there are people like that out there that you can maybe sort of sound out. And again, you might be really, really fortunate and have somebody in your family that's willing to do that. And I kind of think I would be willing and able to do that with people in my family, but I would never expect them now, ever, I think, to look at a first of something, unless it was something that they had, a particular stake in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. We've had other authors on. We've asked them the same question because their children came into the screen, and we're being part of the, which is brilliant. We love when that happens on Life Adventures Live. And we did ask them if they read their dad's books or he'd passed it, and he was like, "Well, no, not really. No, I at the end when it's all published." But I think he was just that kind of, my goodness, what if they were just too honest? Then I might just
It is hard. This is a big psychological thing of will I find something in there that makes me feel really uncomfortable about this person who was my mom or whatever, or will I be able to deal with it? And I think you have to respect that. I found that quite strange at first, because it's almost like a completely different aspect of somebody's personality that you've never had to deal with before. I spoke to another author yesterday, and I was asking them, did their family read it? And they said, well, a bit like me, no, but they were very supportive. But don't expect your family to be supportive in that way. Just be glad that they're not preventing you from writing.
It's that fine line, isn't it? Being prevented and giving them, wanting to get honest feedback, and someone that feels that, I better just tell them it's lovely. And then that's what they take forward when they bring their book to the next person, and that's when it can be a little bit more harder, isn't it, when they get a different opinion from someone unrelated to them. So we had a comment from Bruce, who said, although writing his last chapter, he found this really useful, especially advice about not rushing. The closer I get to the end, the more eager I am to finish. Did you find that as well? Did you?
Yeah, definitely, because it's like a long, hard labor, and you want to see the product, you want to be able to hold it up and show it, but it is hold back. I think it's like with any work of art. I even have an issue with calling this a work of art because it's so innate to me. So don't call it a work of art, but it is. You've created it. It's your baby. You want to share it. You want other people to appreciate it and to give you feedback. But if you're not careful, you will spoil the actual end result. So it's almost like it's going nowhere. It's going to get better. It's going to ripen. If you drop off, there's techniques you can do to come back to it. But definitely, I'm with you, Bruce. If it's good, it's going to get better.
Wonderful. Carol came back through asking about beta readers, actually, but she thinks we answered her question, which was about finding a beta reader and then having the confidence to pass your baby over is quite difficult. Do you agree? It's something we all have to do. Do you think it's absolutely essential then for that kind of just getting a reader's response? I mean, I presume for a lot of people that's why they write for a reader. I mean, a lot of people also will write just to, it's a great mindful activity as well. I can understand that it might be just something that helps to deal with something you've been through. And we use we do a lot with writing as a kind of mindfulness, well-being activity as well. A lot of groups we work with to a lot of success. But those people that are wanting it to be shared with the world, getting a reader's response to something rather than editors or a family, is it essential? Do you think it's absolutely something you really should be willing to do?
I do. There's no other way around it, is there? Because if you don't do that, if you do want to go, for example, down the traditional publishing route, you'll send it off and you'll have nothing, which let's face it, 95% of writers hear nothing back from a traditional publisher anyway. And if you do, it probably will be really make you feel rubbish, and it's almost because you've not tried it with somebody else first. And so if you know somebody in the writing industry is willing to look at it, fantastic. You can't ask for better than that. But you also might know somebody who is an absolute book bonkers person, who is probably, as good as, because they're a reader. They know what makes a good story. And they might not be able to advise you on the writing industry, but they can advise you on that character. It's completely unbelievable, or that scene was your best one. And that's all that you want. You could even just say, there's only 5 things I want to find out. One is about, what are the best scenes? What do we need to do a little bit less of? And rather than just giving somebody a free-for-all to kind of tear it to shreds or just tell you it's wonderful because they can't be bothered spending the time giving you some proper feedback. And again, I'm really lucky because Home for Writers groups always gave me really, really good constructive feedback. But I can't see a way around it. If you want other people to read it, you have to test it with other people. You can't test it with the internet, can you? You can't. Probably is an app. I know that there's definitely apps nowadays where it'll tell you what the actual, what will make a successful book, what bits you need in it, and how to structure it. But you would need to do it with human beings, generally with nice human beings, people that you trust.
Suss them out first. Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question coming in from Owen. Hey, Owen. What do you think about books published by writing groups? How much of a confidence boost can these give to nervous first-time writers? That's a good question.
That is a lovely question, because that's exactly what it did for me. That's exactly what it did. And there's some cracking stuff. Again, using Home for Writers group as an example, we did a book, and it was the first time I'd ever had, other than the book that I did in Africa, something in Britain, and you have to submit it, and they had to select it, and again, great, lovely feedback, and it was just a wonderful feeling to see a collective group effort. We were celebrating our local area. What could be better than where we live, celebrating it through the written word? But yeah, I think they're fantastic, and I would like to see more of them. And maybe that's something we can do with the libraries a bit more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have got a list. Thank you, Owen, for that question. It's a great question. I have got a list. I don't think it's complete. I think there's more out there. And I think what I would say is I'm going to put this up. If you're in a writing group, or you know of a writing group that's not featured on this list, we're really grateful if you send them in. And what we'll do is we'll have the list available on a website, which I'm going to show you in a second. But this is the list that we started putting together from. Got 2 laptops going here, so just wait one moment. I just nip down here. So we've got the Home Firth Writers Group, which we've been talking about a lot today. The Huddersfield Authors Circle. I might just make this slightly big. I'll take us out, Chris. Huddersfield Authors Circle, Marsden Write Out Loud, Shepley Writers, and the Albert Poets. I know there's the Batley Poets group as well, which hasn't made it onto this list yet, but we'll get that updated as well. That's an active group, very active group across in Batley. So, and what this list, I'm just going to nip down. We're all about Kirklees, but we'll mention our neighbours as well. But there are groups across the borders in Leeds, which I might go a little faster through. And again, this list will be available on our website for you to work through yourselves. So if you're a little bit closer to the border to Leeds, there's lots in Leeds. And then there's groups across in Bradford as well. And don't forget Manchester side, because there's some cracking groups over that side of the Pennines as well. And there's an online group as well. So but we'll get this updated and make sure that we keep it updated. And so if you've got any groups that you run or that you're part of that you know of, please send us through and we'll get up to date. We want this to be as useful as possible. And
I would say as well, just on that note as well, I think most people are sensible enough and they'll know that all of these groups are run by volunteers. So people are just doing it because they love writing and they want to share their love of writing. So if you do get in touch with them, just bear in mind that, this isn't, like contacting a big corporate organisation. This is just leave a little bit of time. We all do this in our own spare time. So just kind of be gentle and just wait for a response. And I think generally speaking, we're all just so welcoming and so friendly. Even if you're really scared, just say I'm scared. I've never met anybody before who does writing.
Yeah, and I imagine they're going through as many problems as we are at the moment with getting people into rooms. So it's a stranger time to be getting in touch, and they might be having the same issues as we're having. But I imagine they're as keen to get back into normal places as possible. So I'm just going to put this up. There's another comment coming through. I'll come back to that one. But the website. So Chris has got her own website as part of our Kirklees Libraries site. So kirkleeslibraries.co.uk/writer-in-residence. On the Kirklees Libraries website, you'll find links to everything that we're doing online, as well as a lot of our services that are still running. And Chris has got a lovely big yellow box on the front page called Writer-in-Residence. If you go into there, what you'll get is information about Chris. You'll get the links to this recording and all subsequent recordings as well. This session that Chris is doing just now, the kind of Q&A with Chris, the kind of workshops, kind of advice kind of sessions, are going to go out the first Thursday of each month. So there'll be another session at the beginning of October. And the events that we're doing with Chris, kind of leading the way for us, where we're going to be meeting with authors, will be different dates, but we'll publish those in advance. We've got one date coming up, which we're telling you about in a moment, but which has got a really exciting theme we're really excited about. But I'll tell you about that at the end, just to keep you holding on to that. Right, so I can just spot. But yeah, if you check out the website, everything else will be there. Any resources that we talk about, we'll make sure that we save those there as well. You'll see information about Chris's books. I think there might be a link. I hope there's a link to Libby, where you can go and borrow Chris's books today. She very kindly donates her books to the Kirklees Libraries to have as ebooks as well, which we hugely appreciative of. And you can go and borrow them today. So it's wonderful. So I've got 2 more comments just popped in. Let's have a look. All right. So there's also Meltham Writers as well. So we'll get Meltham Writers added to that list as well. See, I knew there was more. I knew there was
Very nice group,
some missing off. So we'll make sure we get those added in as well. Thank you very much, Owen and Tim. Right. Okay. So I can't see more questions that have popped in just now. We're coming up on the hour. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of finish off with, Chris, before we just talk about what's coming up next? Do you want to...
No, just one thing that I would say is, again, we've deliberately, haven't we, Kirstie, tried to keep this very organic. So it's about what do people want to see, what do people want to hear, what would they, a bit like when we do KAFE, what would help people to hear a bit more of, to see a little bit more of. What is it that you want people sitting out there watching this today, whatever your age, because obviously you might be thinking about, if you're a young person, you might be thinking about writing as a career. So that again is quite a different kettle of fish to be talking about it as a career. But you might be an older person who's thinking, I'll put this on hold for my entire life. How can I start now? Can you give me some advice? It's all a bit scary. So I think it's mostly about what do people want to see from these sessions as well. We can sit there and dream up great stuff, but it has to be what people want to hear and what they want to maybe contribute to as well. Because I know when writers are watching, they've just, we've got some fantastic experience out there, and people who have come at it from a very different angle from me and a quite different experience. I know one of the big questions that everybody has is publishing, getting your book read, getting your book noticed. So that's, I think, something that we will look at in the future. But that's why I've deliberately put the next section as being fact and fiction, because I don't want anybody to feel, oh, they're just going to talk about romance novels, or that's not my kind of thing. Oh, we're always ever going to talk about poetry, or actually I'm interested in writing instruction manuals. I want it to be something where everybody's encouraged to feel that whatever drive they've got for whatever they want to produce, they'll get something from these sessions. But we can only do that if people kind of reach out and contact us and say, let's have a bit on this, please.
So the email address is on the screen there. So please do get in touch if you can send us comments now as well as part of the chat on Facebook or YouTube. But otherwise, just send us an email. We'll be able to pass them on to Chris, and we'll have a look and see how we can kind of direct what we're going to be doing. We've got a long list of authors and people we want to bring you as well. Yeah. So we're quite excited about what's coming up. But do get in touch. It's most useful if we have this interaction. Chris would have been going out to all our individual libraries to meet people almost one-to-one. So this is let's make the most of what we can do online instead. So please do get in touch. Okay, thank you very much, Chris. So the next session with Chris herself will be one of our kind of next two kind of sessions. So Chris will be doing next Q&A the first Thursday of October, exactly the same time, 11 o'clock. But please do tell people we're about the sessions, and they'll all be available after the session. I use the word session an awful lot there. I've gone off script, you see. No worries. Just repeat the same word over and over. So yeah, everything we've done today will be available on the website, on Facebook and YouTube. So do please tell people to go and have a look. And that's where we'll be posting all the other ones we do as well. But so in addition to these monthly face-to-face sessions with Chris, we'll be having supporting events as well. And the first that we're running is on the 24th of September, again at 11 o'clock, which will be a panel of experts led by Chris, who will be basing the session around workshops that she's run in our libraries for us in the past. Very successful, very informative, and with wonderful feedback from people that took part, which are aimed at parents, carers, teachers, anyone who works with children who are reluctant readers, those children who just haven't had that right book at that right time, that's been able to give them that wonderful pleasure, that wonderful joy, that excitement, that empathy building, that new world exploring experience that reading and books bring to children and to us all. But if you know of children or parents or carers or teachers who would find this useful, please do put them onto the event. So it's the 24th of September at 11 o'clock, again on our Facebook or our YouTube page. If they can't make it, please don't worry. They can watch it on catch up on either of those places as well. And if they have questions that they'd like us to consider in advance, please tell them to, or yourself, to email them in. Again, this one email address is everything. To email any questions or comments or things you might like us to cover. The session, I think, might run a little bit longer than our usual hour, because we've got a great panel putting together, and what we're hoping to give out is strategies, book recommendations. I'm hoping you'll come away with a huge long list of book recommendations, of new books that are coming out, as well as old firm favourites and successful reads, and support as well. So so it might run slightly longer than an hour. So make sure you've got a cuppa ready. That's what I would say. Okay. One thing I've got last thing to tell you is on Libby, that's our ebook service, our free ebook service. We have a collection of books we put together, ebooks put together for you, which feature writing kind of support books. So there's a whole long, there's books about writing non-fiction, writing fiction, writing children's books. I think I put some video gaming ones in there because we've been talking about that, Chris, haven't we? Writing children's books. So there's a lovely collection there together. They're not ones that we particularly recommend, but they are books that have been written and been recommended by others. That's what I would say. Some of them are some of the popular ones that you get when you go looking on that very famous website people go and buy books from. Do check it out. It's on Libby. It's called Writer in Residence. Okay, I think that's everything. Is that everything from you, Chris, for today? Have I mentioned everything I was supposed to?
Thank you everybody for such nice questions as well. Thank you.
Yes, we've had lots of lovely comments coming through. I didn't want to hear, but we've had some lovely things thanking us for doing the session today, and looking forward to what we're going to do next. So first Thursday of October, please join us again at 11 o'clock. Chris will be back. Fiction versus non-fiction. There's a place for them both, and Chris has written both, so she's in a really, really good place to talk about that that kind of debate and that discussion, and helping you decide where your passions or your strengths might lie. Is that fair to say, Chris?
It is, and as I said, I never planned to do that. That just happened. I think planning has its place, but sometimes just follow the story. Sometimes the story is information as opposed to traditional fairy tale sort of story.
Oh, I love that. As the ending line, follow the story. Let's not say anything else. That's perfect. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And we'll look forward to the next session and seeing you all then. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.